Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. Last day of 2025, still no constitutional rights. My right to my writings and discoveries continues to be violated. Continuing on with the derivation. Sensorality opposes. Sensorality is opposality. Vibration poses, right? If someone's taking your picture and they say strike a pose, you freeze, you don't move. Vibration poses. Technique is form. Technique is etiquette. Why is self-conscious a term, right? When we're talking about an object, saying an inanimate object, I still believe is redundancy, right? An object is not animate. And so that's what we're doing with sensorality, is trying to linguistically show this iteration to connect what's the difference between sentient filtration and non-sentient filtration. And is that the right differentiation to make? It should be, but just trying to show this direct iteration. But point being is this redundancy. What is self-conscious, right? Sensorality with a C is not self-conscious. It's not aware of itself. It can't articulate sentience. So again, just how does redundancy in language present itself, and why does it present itself? Because consciousness refers to a self. A word is a term. Sensorality is terminology. Sensorality is terminologicality. Constructing manufactures. Sensorality manufactures. Manufacturing builds. A foundation is the base of a building. Base, basic. So now again with this sequence versus series, future, past, I don't even want to say the word tense. Past, physically, chronologically is very clear, set, doesn't change. The future clearly hasn't happened. When the present, for me, when I think something, when I speak it to you, when you understand it, that dynamic is not well defined. So there's our fundamental dichotomy of two. But can we say something again, clearly linguistic basis and basic? Again, logically, they're similar. They give you the same types of intuitions. Linguistically, they're different by one letter. But again, it's that iteration of the S, basis and basic. And so the K sound versus the S sound. Which again, we're still showing some sort of development of that iteration. And that iteration is very clear through, it's independent of languages. The different, right, again, the cedille in French, to soften it, is kind of showing, here it typically has a K sound, we have to soften it, but then it's intermingled with the S in a lot of English words. So this iteration, again, the sound is the basis, and these letters from these different, these alphabets represented by letters, literally the shapes, those represent the sounds. But the phonetics, the amount of sounds human can make, that's the basis of linguistics. But what can we say about basis and basic? Basicality is average. Basic is fundamental. Average is fundamental. And again, that big connection, fundamental means frequent. Fundamental, manufacture. Average is frequent, right? If something is average, most people do it, it's frequent. Frequentality is fundamentality. A filament is a string. A string is a strand. Stranded is isolated. Is isolate. Sensorality isolates. Filtering isolates. Isolation concentrates. Concentration is the opposite of differentiation. Right? If something's differentiating, it's going out. If everything's coming in, it's concentrating. Differentiation is distribution. Sensorality is distributionality. So now we can see, again, distribution. We can see this fundamental stability of two codified and stabilized within languages. Vibration, VI, dimension, DI, differentiation, DI, distribution, DI, disrespect, DI. Right? It's not DIS as a prefix, it's DI stabilized with spec from speciality. The opposite of degrading is upgrading. Sensorality upgrades. Moments are discrete. Sensorality is themiality. theme, add an IAL, ITY. Memory remembers. So now here's another one of those words, absorb, absorbing, absorption. Memory, memorizing, remember. So what happens with this E? Again, now we have to, something's going on with this E and the A for sure. And then there's those numeric limits going on, but doesn't necessarily have to be in like the first 5 letters, but these numeric limits are present. But we'll lose the O. Memory remembers. And so remember does not have an O in it. And so it's like some of these, again, these fundamental intuitions, there's nothing else to say. It's just, and so like, again, it's very clear to see, it's like, look how long this derivation's taking. And again, I can't speed it up or slow it down. It's just, this is the maximum you can derive. And so it's like you take one of these even episodes out of context, right? The proof is putting all of these pieces together, but all of these little steps, they'll just strike somebody as a simple fact. And that's all it is, but it's showing the consistency of language. Remember, take off the prefix remember. A member belongs. The opposite of forgetting is remembering. Sensorality is remembering. How does gravity relate to vibration? Newton says it's a force. Again, we're analyzing this from the consistency of language, knowing that, again, intuition and conceptualization is consistent, and all people have internal error, me included. That's why I have to sit here and talk out all of this logic. But they're just trying to describe experience. And so gravity to vibration, we'll go from the operative word from gravity from Newton is force, from Einstein is shape or geometry. How does vibration, objects with mass vibrating, establish, again, boundary? But then you don't, kind of got, this is back to the intuition on, again, I don't know, 200 parts ago, but in the first 10 where it's like, that vibration, we can finally define distance or displacement, but then you still have to have like, again, the actual object, if it's not vibrating, what's its size, and then like the range that it vibrates within, and those were 2 distinct, meaningful quantities. But how does vibration regulate shape? Again, just posing a question to pose it, but again, gravity and that VIT, gravity, right? And that's vibration, right? That's the base of gravity is literally vibration, linguistically, directly. But now we can restate the fundamental theorem of mathematics. The opposite of multiplication is unification, right? Something is multiplying in the same way this can intuitively be proliferation or even division. Again, not the operations, but the concepts. If something is dividing, there's more of it. If it's multiplying, there's more of it. Because physically, you can't have more or less mass. It's all local, right? If I pick up, if I'm saying the whole universe is what is in the frame right now, and then I pick up my light and I bring it in the frame, there's literally more mass in the frame. And so the physics, right? The conservation of mass, you can't increase or decrease, you can't create or destroy matter. And so we're kind of approaching these, what would typically be identified as mathematical operators, just more of what is the intuition, right? Division and multiplication are dichotomies, right? That's the whole point. They're 2 different forms of the same thing. You divide by a number, like when you're doing fractions, and then you flip one and multiply it, or when you're doing addition or subtraction, and you intuitively add. If you're subtracting a number, you kind of ask yourself, what negative number do I have to ask to add to this number to get this? And so you're still doing the same functionality intuitively, whether you call it addition and subtraction, multiplication, or division. But it conceptually, right, the opposite of differentiating, of multiplying, of being more diverse, is unification. And so that is the current fundamental theorem, most comprehensive thing to say about mathematics or thematics. Integration unifies. Sensorality is unificality. Unification simplifies. Unify, simplify. Simplification reduces. And that is what we are doing logically, to the point of this linguistical element, this word, sensorality. The syllables are what's fundamental, and we're trying to generate this logical statement that the syllability will pair up whether we add spaces or we subtract spaces, and then the leftover syllability, the letters, will literally be the form of the next axiom. Because we are reducing this proof to completeness. Getting as much progress as possible, but like I said, I can't speed this up or slow it down. It is a violation of my most basic human Declaration of Human Rights, which is independent of most countries, and is all violated. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.